All right, you can see it, I hope so. Maybe show a thumbs up, perfect. Let's start with my talk. This is a talk about the yes-no debate. I will first give you a little outline so you know what you can expect. I will start with the problem, what I actually want to solve. So who is this for? And I will also mention somewhat of a premise, which is the Allman's agreement theorem. Then I will show you the rules of the yes-no debate format. We will have a little example run. And I also will give you practical tips on what you can actually ask during that debate. Then we will run debates. We'll start with like finding your beliefs, if you didn't know them already, that you can debate in pairs. So first find your beliefs, then let's debate in pairs. And after that, we will have a first feedback round. So I want to first listen to your feedback. Then I will also give you the feedback or the experiences I gathered from the previous workshops and the previous online debates. And there's time for questions. Until this point, we should be done in 60 minutes. So like, this is what if your time is limited, you can leave here. And then there is, if you want, there is room for another debating round. All right, so a little intro. I am Georg Jenig. I am from Berlin. I was active in less wrong Berlin since 2015. I moved to Prague. Here I'm somewhat active in the EA group. And the yes-no debate developed because I always was a very vivid debater, or not a debater in a sense that I was going to debating clubs or so. I was always very curious about like, what is the truth? How can we find out what's real? And I was very often very disenchanted when I watched others debating, because I very often had the impression they were on cross purposes. So based on this, I thought we can maybe put this into some channels and can like enforce some insights that a debate can give us. So the first rules I set up in 2018, and then we were practicing live debates at Less Wrong Berlin, and also at the European Less Wrong Community Weekend that happened every year in Berlin. And in this year also, like, I started debates online, written debates, and most of them happened on a subreddit called Yes-No Debate. So what's the problem? What do we actually want to solve? Does it sound familiar? You're discussing for many hours with someone, but nobody changed their mind and nobody learned anything. It sounds very familiar to me. It happens still a lot. And I think this often happens because too few questions are asked. And if they're asked, then too few questions are actually answered. And this is a problem because a disagreement often has many facets. So you can look at the problem from many angles, and we like to talk about the facets that convinced us, but these facets are not necessarily the ones that our counterpart cares about. And this is why we end up often discussing in cross purposes. So to give you some examples, let's say you are into veganism and you care a lot about animal welfare. Well, you can make that point, and even it could be convincing, but your counterpart might just care more about how can I get my proteins and my amino acids, right? So even if you convince them that the animals are suffering, and even if they don't admit, they would still maybe care more about their nutrition. Or another example is you might be a proponent of the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, and your main point is, well, imagine all the freedom. Actually, I was part of the supporter group. And then there might be critics who see your point, but still they are more skeptical because they don't know how this can be financed. What I think, like, the problem is always you can't keep on talking on this cross purposes. You need to address the points that the other person is having. And again, like, this is about the questions. I think the questions are the key here. So we want to force asking questions and also make sure that questions are answered. So in concrete, this should look like this, that at every turn, a question must be asked. This also makes sure that the other person is actually still interested in debating. So this is a nice side effect, because often if you have just this debate, you have like these long paragraphs of one comment and the other comment. And often people are only inclined to answer because they feel provoked of the things that are written in a comment, but they're not necessarily still interested in having this conversation. So, but making sure that they have to ask the question to continue it's somewhat more of an active, of an active act that makes sure that you still want to have this conversation. And I picked the idea of yes/no questions because it's much easier to check whether they actually are answered or not. So it's different to a why question or a what question. It's easier to dodge them or not answer them in a satisfying way, whereas a yes/no question is. And you notice we have 5 possible answers, so not only 2. I will show you which 3 more there are. Just a general remark on when to use this and when not, because not always this framework is useful. So it is useful when you are talking with one other person. So if it's 2 people debating, and you actually know what you're disagreeing about, like at least the starting point should be clear, and it should be clearly a disagreement, because too often people just like debate and they actually agree, but they just don't notice. And the third one is crucial. You need to believe that there is an objective truth about your belief, and that truth can be found using correct reasoning and maximum information. So what this is not, clearly it's about debates about taste, like does coffee taste good or smell good? That's obviously very subjective. But something objective is, for instance, the question, like imagine a box of Tic Tacs, which has an unknown number of these little Tic Tac pills. That number can be either even or odd. And even if you both agree that you don't know the number yet, you know that it has to be either one of those, and that objective truth can be found out by, I don't know, opening and counting them. The fourth condition is you should also be willing to change your mind, because at least partly, because when you're forced to answer questions, you often will be forced to maybe admit some weak point. Or at least some point that seems to you, seems for the other weak, and it could be, it could be like psychologically hard to say, okay, yeah, right, I have to say no to that, but it makes me look bad or so. So in general, you should be in a situation where scout mindset is allowed. That's a term from the book of Julia Galef, which I can highly recommend. So if you've read it, you know what I mean. If not, read the book. And this is a contrast to soldier mindset, which is the other category of situations. So where yes/no debate does not work is likely a public debate, like a panel, and you are invited maybe to represent an opinion. So it's not about information exchange between the participants, but you are invited to speak for your group. And it would be pretty weird if you on panel would change your mind. It's just not expected. And so this is actually something where soldier mindset is expected, at least in this very situation. If you later meet the public with the panel participants in a private situation, you of course can again be in scout mindset. So, and this is also based on Orman's agreement theorem. So that's a thing from game theory. You can read the Wikipedia article. It's from the 1970s. The actual theorem is a bit more complicated. So I summarized it in this way. If you know what I know, and we are both rational, then we must agree. Or even simpler, the same information and the same reasoning should lead to the same conclusions. Now, what does it mean in practice? So imagine the concept of a belief tree. Actually, do you see here my camera? Do you see these photos? Or is it covering or is it not? Can you see the whole slide?
The photos, no, I just see text.
Okay, that's perfect, because for me it's covering here part of it. Even better. So imagine this is the belief tree, and you hold the belief that you should take the COVID vaccination. Like this is E here at the end, right? I take the COVID vaccination. Then this is the root of the tree, and the leaves here on the left are the basic information that you build up this belief on. So it's a very simplified tree, I guess, but we can imagine what we're talking about. So this is the final conclusion. I take the vaccination, and it's based on the first information, A, many people die from COVID, and the other information, few people die from the vaccination. And based on this first information, we conclude that from A, many people die from COVID, follows B, that COVID is dangerous. And similarly from C, few people die from the vaccination, we can conclude that the vaccination is safe. And then we combine both, and we come up with the final conclusion. So if you wonder what you could ask in a yes-no debate, it's exactly like checking if your counterpart agrees with all the nodes and the edges. So do you agree with A? Do you agree that from A follows B? And the same for the rest, right? Okay, I let it sink in a bit. Of course, like in your actual belief tree might be way more complicated, but I think this somewhat gives the message of what this is about. Okay, now let's look in practice at the rules. This is the basic flowchart of the yes-no debate, and we will go through it with a very simple example debate. It is a debate between Anna and Bert, and they disagree over the question, people should be allowed to carry guns in public. This is what Bert believes. And so Anna starts with a question and she asks, should people be allowed to carry rifles? Okay, and Bert answers yes, so we are here in the first column. Bert answers yes, he could give optionally reasons, because again, this is not a, like we're not hiding something, it's not about winning, it's about giving insights. So you of course like can give reasons, like maybe not too long, too much elaborated, but you should use it when you think that your counterpart is like on a totally wrong path. And you see maybe more or less this is following the rules of the 20 questions game. So because Bert got a yes, Anna keeps asking questions. And now there's a other situation. Anna asks again, should people be allowed to carry hand grenades? And here Bert answers no. So again, he could give reasons, he doesn't. But since he answered no, like in 20 questions, the roles change. So the next question comes now from Bert. And he asks, should people be allowed to carry knives? And here Anna can't just say yes or no. She says depends. She says, and she has to also give a condition for the yes or the no answer. So in that case, she says yes for small knives, no for long blades. And it means that, like, ideally, the conditions should make clear, I would answer yes to this question if it would be phrased like this. So I would answer yes if the question would be, should people be allowed to carry small knives? And I would answer no if the question would be, should people be allowed to carry knives with long blades? So you have to give these conditions for yes and no. And optionally, of course, the reasons. And since it's a green question, the rows remain, a green answer, the rows remain, and Bert can keep asking. So the next question Bert asked is, so people shall not carry hand grenades while the police have them. And here Anna objects, and because she sees a false premise in the question. And she says the false premise is the police do not have hand grenades. So this is also a card you need to pull if the question is loaded, right? A more maybe plastic example is, think of the writings of Franz Kafka. And there in one book, I think the prosecutor asks, have you stopped beating your wife, right? So and either if you answer yes or no, you would admit that you have done it. So you need to prepare, or you need to have an option to defend against that type of question, and that is the false premise answer. And now we change the roles because this is like a no answer. Again, Anna asks, do more people die from guns than from drugs? And since Bert doesn't know, he simply can say, I don't know. And Anna can keep asking questions. Okay, these are the 5 types of answers to a yes-no question. And you can do that as long as you want. Like, I mean, there's no winning, it's only winning insights. So this is like, it's just a rough framework. Yeah, and it should lead you to force asking questions, also force you to answering them. Now, I think at this point we can jump into questions, but we should maybe just limit about the rules. Unless you really have a pressing question about the general idea or the things I said before, just ask something about the rules if they are clear, and if they are, then we can jump into the practical part. So maybe Antonin, you can collect questions or just raise your hand. I mean, there's not so many. If you have questions to the rules. If not, maybe just show a thumbs up. Okay, I see. I don't see Martin. Martin is also fine. Is the other Martin? Yeah, okay. Great. Then, since the rules are clear, we are jumping now into the practical part, the debate. And we start with, yeah, let's find your beliefs. Maybe we can already shorten this. Who of you, maybe I just explain what it's about. So find your beliefs. Should be a belief that likely other people here don't hold. You should have maybe have some elaboration that you can explain what this is about. Ideally, you would have, at least in your mind, you would have your belief tree. So you would know what your belief is based on. And even more ideally, you would have falsification criteria. So you would know what would I need to see that would change or at least update my mind on this question. As I already told you, like my typical example is always, I'm actually believing that there should be no voting age. So age should not be a reason to stop someone from voting. In practice, it could mean that to be able to vote, you need to register yourself in the voting register, and the official person should not be allowed to refuse you just for your age. Yeah, and falsification criteria would be like, show me that a scenario is a likelihood that this will lead to a lot of chaos and mayhem, like something like this, or that you would just see that it would cause a lot of problems. That would be my falsification criteria. Okay, so maybe just give me some feedback. What do you already have beliefs that you would like to talk about? Thumbs up. Okay. Antonin doesn't. So do you need help, Antonin, or do you need some time?
Just like 30 seconds, please.
Mm-hmm. All right. I could also give you the chance to ask something in the chat, but I just need to open the chat. I can't see it. Otherwise, maybe if you have some other concerns or questions, or maybe a short comment, Antonin can unmute us so far.
So I have a general question. Is this format something you came up with or somebody else?
I did. I came up with it. Yeah. I take all the credit. But actually, I have to add, I mean, the first format didn't have like, it had only 4 answering options, and the 5th one came up after like we had played it in sessions, and like I think one person remarked, hey, sometimes I don't know. And also like if you look on the subreddit, there are also like some little tweaks to the rules. Like for instance, we have the option that you can ask several questions in a row, and then the answering person only answers up to the first no. So that often saves also time. But and that rule adaptation also just was born by the feedback we got from running it with very nice volunteers. So I wonder how to proceed.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I will come back. I think we'll be fine.
All right. Okay. If not, I mean, so the next step is now we go into the breakout sessions of 2 people. The whole time I would assert is 15 minutes, from which the first maximum 5 you should use to find your belief. Like both of you should just tell like what are the things you would like to talk about. You don't need to strongly disagree, which is more important that you have curiosity and you maybe have just a slight disagreement. And then you should use a minimum 10 minutes to debate. And after that, we will come back for a feedback round. And also during your debate, I'm like me and Anthony will manage to maybe, yeah, to help you if in case you need some help. I mean, I wonder how we do with the numbers. We are now like one, it's me and 4 participants. So I guess we have just 2 pairs, right? And I will just be trying to watch the chat and jumping into you when I have into your room when you're asking me. Maybe just ideally use the chat if there's as a first level of of questioning. Okay, so yeah, then we just jump into the other insights. What's the feedback round? Hang on, how can I get this? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the previous debates, like we did spoken debates, live debates, but also written debates. And as you just noticed, the first insight is that asking is much harder than answering, because asking forces you to craft a question. And you need to realize what makes you believe what you think, right? You need to have this decision or belief tree in your head. So what are the beliefs, which facts are relevant for you, and in what way do they lead to your belief? And you have to do the same actually for your partner's mind. So you have to step by step create their decision tree in your mind, and you have to do that by remembering what they've answered before and come up with a reasonable question. And the second insight is that this very tedious task is much easier if it's written, because if it's written, then you can scroll back, and you also have more time to ask, right? Because in the live debate, even if you agree, well, take your time. It's kind of weird to just be 2 minutes quiet, but this is no problem in a written debate where you can just take a whole day, maybe even to answer and to ask the next question. So here's also some insight I liked from a Reddit debater. So he said, it was surprisingly good to have a focal point to respond to, even if they posted a wall of text explaining their position. The question was the only thing I felt required to address. So it took less mental energy to debate than it would have taken in a different format. Right. So this is again like this experience I had, like there was these many paragraphs, so many things I disagree with, but maybe they're not all relevant, but I don't want to leave them there because I disagree. So I always feel compelled to reply. Instead, here I always see a question, and a yes or no is enough. So it's also very time saving, right? If you think about all the times you spend on disagreeing with someone on the internet, which I never should do, right? Based on the XKCD comic. But here you can do it in at least very efficient or effective altruist maybe way. Yeah, so to wrap this up, if you want to have this written debates, you can do them on Reddit. There's a subreddit called Yes No Debate. So you can only start a debate by posting there. Just read the rules, but starting a debate works by posting, and then people can join by asking a question in the comments, and then it just you keep like asking and answering in this comment thread. Another way is to use them on Twitter. Actually, I created the rules for Twitter. I thought, like, first, there are so many influential political people there, and also like the format of Twitter, like these constrained tweet lengths could be already serving well for the format. But not so many debates happen there. But if you want to debate, if you maybe know someone else that maybe you're both well informed about some topic and you disagree, then just suggest them to have a debate based on the rules. The rules are pinned on that Twitter account, and I of course can retweet. I can also help to maybe settle some questions if it's a false premise or not. And yeah, so feel free to use also Twitter. On yesnodebate.org, you can stay tuned in the newsletter. And of course, I can also give you this workshop for your audience. If you happen to know some people that might be interested, just reach out, and I can do the same like here for another group. Yeah, so that will be so far my talk on this. Just I can't see you actually. I feel so lost here. Hang on. Yeah, maybe let's have some more general questions. Maybe I should stop sharing the screen. Did I share it? Yeah, I should. I did share the screen. Oh my God. So I was just talking to the camera. Okay, I will show the last slide, which is super important, like where the links are. Why does that work here? Here. Yeah, so here are the links. Yeah, so that they should be at least on the recording. So far, all right, then, oh my God, it's not, so here are the other slides, just you can take a look, insight from previous debates, insight. But it's actually all these two insights. There's a blog article on yesnodebate.org in the blog, and I've summarized the insights so you can read them there. Yeah, so general questions, and if not, we can jump again to your breakout rooms. But just for some time for questions. Or just comments, remarks, I don't know.
Are you sure about because your argument was that it saves time, but I feel like it takes a lot of time to formulate the question. So maybe one person saves time and the other kind of loses it.
Yeah, that might be true. I mean, it depends how you maybe debate in general. So either you're well informed about the topic, then you should already know like what your belief tree is, and you would simply check like if yeah, you would actually just go through your belief tree, ask the questions, and check where the other person diverges. So it should be quick. Or you're not informed about the topic, but then maybe at least I am very, very trained already to just have these check-up questions. So I would just like need to, like the first thing I always check if I hear a new belief and I'm not decided if I agree or not, I do something similar like a programmer would do when they have a code base and there's a merge request, right? So someone else edited my code. I hope you're programmers more or less, so you can know what I'm talking about. So the first thing is do actually the test pass, right? Is the new code still working? So for me, like in a belief, that would be like, is it somewhat consistent? So first, what does it mean, and is it consistent? And then in the next check, I would see, okay, what are the differences to my belief, like the diffs in the code base? And then I would only go through the diffs and check, okay, why do I differ here? And again, like for me, this is mostly time saving. It's actually, but maybe I'm too much. I have too much internalized already that way of Socratic discussion. But I think it's helpful. So what definitely not helps is to just like start talking about your belief and hoping that you maybe randomly catch like what the other person is interested about.
Yeah, I'm excited to try a bit more in the breakout rooms.
All right, yeah, then maybe just assign, I guess, the same ones, right? Because you were already in the flow and you want to continue. Is it you're nodding? All right.
Yeah, works for me.
Then
And I also enabled that you can move between the rooms. So I think it should be possible for you to move.
all right. Let's simply give some time limit that we know how long it will be. So again, 15 minutes. Does that sound good?
Sure, we can try it.
Yeah. So let's commit to be back at 2022.